Welcome to LexTalks Legal Topics Simplified, where we make legal concepts, easy and accessible for students of law.
hmm
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the world of banks in India.
Okay.
The places where we deposit our stipends and
Yeah.
student loans.
Yes.
But have you ever considered, the legal frameworks that govern these institutions?
Yeah, it's interesting.
We're going to explore the different types of banks in India,
Okay.
and more importantly, what makes each one unique, from a legal perspective.
That's a good point.
What's fascinating is how India's banking system caters to such diverse needs,
Right.
from funding massive infrastructure projects to empowering small-scale farmers.
Yeah.
And each type of bank operates within a specific legal framework that dictates its functions and responsibilities.
So it's not as simple as it seems on the surface.
No, not at all.
Let's start with the big kahuna, the Reserve Bank of India, or RBI.
Okay.
It sounds like, the Supreme Court of the financial world.
I like that analogy. What kind of legal authority does it wield?
Well, the RBI is actually established under the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934.
Oh, wow.
And this act grants it immense power.
Uh-huh.
It's the central bank responsible for maintaining monetary stability,
Okay.
regulating currency, and overseeing the entire banking system.
So it's really like the overseer of everything.
Yeah, think of it as the guardian of India's financial system,
Okay.
ensuring everything runs smoothly and legally.
So when the RBI sets interest rates or decides how much money banks need to keep in reserve, it's all backed by this powerful act.
Absolutely. It's not just about setting rules. The RBI also has the legal authority to enforce them
I see.
through inspections, audits, and even penalties for banks that don't comply.
Oh, wow.
This ensures the system remains stable and trustworthy.
That's some serious legal muscle.
Indeed.
Now let's talk about the banks we interact with daily, commercial banks.
Okay.
These are the ones where we open our accounts and maybe even take out loans, right?
Exactly. Commercial banks are governed by the Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Okay. Which lays down the rules for their establishment operation and even winding up. These banks cater to individuals, businesses, and large corporations, providing services like deposits, loans, and various financial products.
From our research, it seems like there are a few different types of commercial banks.
Yes,
Could you shed some light on that?
certainly. We have public sector banks where the majority stake is held by the government.
Okay.
Think State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda,
Okay.
and others. Then there are private sector banks like HDFC Bank,
Yes.
ICICI Bank, and Axis Bank, where private entities hold the majority ownership.
So there's a difference in ownership.
Exactly. We also have a number of foreign banks operating in India, like HSBC or Citibank, all operating within the same legal framework.
So despite their ownership differences, they all operate under the same legal umbrella.
Yes, that's right.
It makes sense that there's consistency across the board.
It's important for maintaining stability and fairness in the system.
But what about banks that are designed to serve very specific purposes?
Right.
Our research mentioned cooperative banks,
Yes.
which sound quite intriguing.
They are quite unique.
What's their deal?
Cooperative banks are actually regulated by a separate law, the Banking Regulation Act of 1949, as applicable to cooperative societies.
So there's a specific section for them?
Yes, they are unique in their structure as they are owned and operated by their members,
Oh, interesting.
who are often from a specific community or geographical area.
Okay.
Their primary focus is not profit maximization, but rather serving the needs of their members,
I see.
promoting thrift and providing credit facilities.
So it's more about community development and financial inclusion, particularly in rural areas.
Precisely. Cooperative banks play a crucial role in providing credit to agriculture, small businesses, and individuals
Okay.
in areas where traditional banking might not be as accessible.
Makes sense.
Their legal framework reflects this unique mission, emphasizing social responsibility and member participation in decision-making.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for a law student.
Oh.
This whole concept of regional rural banks, or RRBs,
Yes, RRBs.
is something I haven't encountered before.
They are quite specialized.
What's their legal standing, and how do they differ from cooperative banks?
RRBs were established under the Regional Rural Banks Act of 1976, specifically to address the credit needs of rural areas.
Right.
Unlike cooperative banks, which can have a broader membership base, RRBs are sponsored by commercial banks with the government holding a stake.
So they have a different ownership structure.
Yes, their focus is primarily on providing agricultural credit, supporting rural development, and generating employment opportunities in those regions.
So in essence, they're bridging the gap between the reach of commercial banks
Exactly.
and the specific needs of rural communities, all under the guidance of a dedicated legal framework.
You've got it.
It's fascinating how each type of bank has a specific role to play, almost like characters in a legal drama,
I like that.
each with its own set of rules and motivations.
A very interesting way to look at it.
And we've just scratched the surface. There are even more specialized institutions, like development banks and investment banks,
Yes, indeed.
each operating within a specific legal domain designed to address unique financial needs.
We'll definitely be delving into those.
I'm already starting to see the banking system in a whole new light, not just as a collection of buildings,
Right.
but as a complex and dynamic legal ecosystem.
Precisely.
This deep dive is definitely shaping up to be quite informative.
We're just getting started.
Looking forward to it.
Next, we'll delve deeper into these specialized institutions and examine the legal nuances that make them tick.
Sounds good.
I think you'll find it quite fascinating.
I'm sure I will.
We'll uncover how these institutions play a crucial role in shaping India's economic landscape.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
We've talked about banks that handle our daily transactions and even those that focus on rural communities. But what about those big projects we see happening all around us? Infrastructure development, industrial growth, things that really boost the economy. Who funds those and what are the legal implications?
That's where development banks come into play. They're governed by the Development Financial Institutions Act of 1997.
Okay.
And they focus on long-term financing for sectors like infrastructure industry and agriculture.
So there's the big picture stuff.
Exactly. Projects like highways, power plants, even large-scale agricultural initiatives often rely on these banks.
So they're like the architects of economic progress,
Yes.
providing the financial foundation for nation-building projects.
I like that analogy.
But how do they differ from commercial banks in their operations?
Well, commercial banks typically deal with shorter-term loans and focus on profitability.
Okay.
Development banks, on the other hand, provide long-term financing at lower interest rates,
I see.
sometimes even taking on higher risks to support projects crucial for national development.
So it's a different approach.
Yes, they're not just lenders, they often play an advisory role,
Interesting.
helping the government and private entities structure these complex projects.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about making a profit. It's about enabling growth that benefits the entire country.
Precisely.
Do we have any specific examples of development banks operating in India?
Absolutely. The Industrial Development Bank of India, or IDBI,
Okay.
Small Industries Development Bank of India, or SIDB, and NABARD, which we touched upon earlier, are all prime examples of development banks
Right.
operating under this specific legal framework.
Now, you mentioned NABARD's connection to RRBs. Does it function under multiple legal frameworks?
It's interesting you point that out. NABARD actually operates under both the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development Act of 1981
Okay.
and the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934.
Wow, so it's kind of like a hybrid.
Yes. This dual mandate allows it to both refinance banks that lend to rural sectors and supervise the RRBs, ensuring their alignment with national agricultural and rural development goals.
Wow, it's almost like a legal hybrid, bridging the gap between development banking and rural financial oversight. Talk about legal multitasking.
Precisely, this unique legal structure highlights how India's banking system is designed to cater to diverse needs
Right.
while maintaining a cohesive approach to national development.
It's impressive how they've thought of everything.
It's a complex system, but it's designed to be comprehensive.
Now let's shift gears and talk about something you might find familiar from movies and TV shows, investment banking.
Ah, yes, the world of high finance.
Oh yes, the world of high finance, mergers, acquisitions, and stock markets.
Right.
It all sounds a bit glamorous and mysterious.
It definitely has a certain allure.
What's the legal framework that governs this sector?
While India doesn't have a dedicated investment banking act as such,
Why?
investment banking activities are regulated by various laws like the Securities and Exchange Board of India or SEBI Act 1992,
Right.
the Companies Act 2013, and the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, among others.
So it's more about specific activities being regulated
Yes,
rather than a blanket act covering the entire sector.
exactly.
Could you break down some of those key activities for us?
Of course, investment banks are primarily involved in helping companies raise capital,
Okay.
whether through issuing stocks or bonds, facilitating mergers and acquisitions,
Right.
or providing strategic financial advice.
So they're like the deal makers.
In a way, yes, they act as intermediaries between companies seeking funds
Okay.
and investors looking for opportunities.
So they're like the matchmakers of the financial world, connecting the right people with the right opportunities, all while operating within a complex web of legal regulations.
A very apt analogy, their actions directly impact market dynamics and investor confidence.
Right.
Hence the need for stringent legal oversight to ensure transparency, fairness, and accountability.
It sounds like a high-stakes, high-pressure environment where understanding the legal intricacies is crucial for success.
It definitely can be.
Are there specific entities in India that focus primarily on investment banking?
While standalone investment banks are more prevalent in Western markets, many Indian financial institutions offer investment banking services. You'll find subsidiaries of major commercial banks like SBI Capital Markets, ICICI Securities, and Axis Capital engaged in these activities,
I see.
all governed by the same legal framework.
It's fascinating how the Indian banking system integrates these specialized functions within existing structures.
It's about efficiency and leveraging existing expertise.
But what about those newer categories we hear about, like small finance banks and payment banks?
Yes, those are interesting
But
developments.
where do they fit into the legal landscape?
These new entrants represent the evolving nature of the Indian financial system.
Okay.
Small finance banks, licensed under the Small Finance Banks Licensing Guidelines 2014,
Uh-huh.
focus on providing financial services to underserved sections of society.
So they have a specific target audience.
Yes, their activities are further regulated by the RBI through various directives and guidelines,
Okay.
ensuring they stay true to their mandate of promoting financial inclusion.
So it's all about reaching those who might not have access to traditional banking services.
Exactly, particularly in rural or semi-urban areas.
What about payment banks? They sound interesting as well.
Payment banks operate under the Payments Banks Guidelines 2014 issued by the RBI.
Okay.
Their scope is more limited compared to traditional banks.
In what way?
They can accept deposits up to a specified limit, but cannot offer loans or credit cards.
So they're more focused on transactions.
Yes, their primary function is to facilitate digital payments and remittances,
Okay.
especially targeting those who are new to the formal banking system.
So they're like the gateway to digital finance, providing a stepping stone for individuals and businesses to enter the world of modern banking. Their legal framework reflects this specific role,
Exactly.
focusing on ensuring secure and efficient payment systems while promoting financial literacy and digital adoption.
Precisely. And as technology continues to disrupt the financial landscape, we can expect the legal framework to adapt and evolve,
Right.
ensuring the stability and integrity of the banking system while fostering innovation and accessibility for all.
This deep dive has been incredibly illuminating.
Mhm.
It's amazing how each type of bank, from the giants of development finance to these new age payment facilitator,
All right.
operates within a distinct legal space, contributing to the larger financial ecosystem.
It's a complex but fascinating world.
It really is, and I'm eager to learn more. It's incredible how we've gone from understanding basic bank accounts to unraveling this whole legal web surrounding the banking system. For someone like me who's still navigating the world of law, this has been an eye-opener.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The legal landscape of banking is constantly evolving, particularly with the rapid advancements in technology.
That's right. We touched upon the rise of small finance banks and payment banks. What other trends are shaping the legal framework of the Indian banking sector?
One of the biggest trends is the focus on cybersecurity and data protection as banks embrace digitalization. They're also dealing with the challenges of securing customer data and preventing fraud. This has led to amendments in existing laws like the Information Technology Act 2000 and the introduction of new guidelines by the RBI specifically addressing cybersecurity in banking.
So it's a continuous race to stay ahead of cyber criminals while ensuring that customers feel safe and confident about their financial information.
Exactly. The legal framework needs to be robust enough to deter cybercrime while also being flexible enough to allow for innovation in digital banking services. It's a delicate balance that regulators are constantly striving to achieve.
Another thing that comes to mind is the push for financial inclusion. We've talked about initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Jan Yojana, which aims to bring everyone into the formal banking system. What are the legal aspects surrounding such initiatives?
Financial inclusion initiatives are often supported by a combination of legal frameworks. There might be specific guidelines issued by the RBI for implementing these programs, while existing laws like the Banking Regulation Act also play a role in ensuring equitable access to financial services, for instance. Regulations might mandate banks to open branches in unbanked areas or offer basic banking services at affordable costs.
So it's not just about encouraging people to open bank accounts. It's about creating a legal ecosystem that ensures these accounts are accessible, affordable, and beneficial for everyone.
Precisely, the legal framework is crucial in bridging the gap between policy goals and on-the-ground implementation, ensuring that financial inclusion initiatives truly empower individuals and communities.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. It's made me realize that banking is not just about numbers and transactions. It's about a complex interplay of legal frameworks that shape the entire financial landscape.
Absolutely. As you continue your legal studies, I encourage you to explore these aspects, further delve into the acts, the guidelines, the regulations, and the case laws that govern this fascinating sector.
I'm definitely going to do that. This deep dive has not only broadened my understanding of the banking system, but it's also piqued my interest in the legal intricacies that underpin it all.
That's the beauty of learning, isn't it? It sparks curiosity, opens up new avenues of exploration, and empowers us to navigate complex systems with greater awareness and understanding.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of banks and their legal frameworks. I hope our listeners found it as informative and engaging as I did.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and our listeners.
Thank you for tuning in to LexTalks. Subscribe for your regular dose of legal insights.